All right. Hello, Javier. Yeah, nice to see you too. Oh, I guess I haven't combed my hair. Sorry about that. Yes, I'm doing good. Thank you. How are you doing? Hello, Gabriel. Nice to see you guys again. All right. Oh, are you very sad? What's up? Oh, yeah. Gabriel says we're in lockdown again. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. I think we're heading in the same direction depending on how things go. Um, I have gigs in the book. Hello, Limburg. I have gigs in the book, but they've been given and taken and given and taken so many times this year that I actually don't even trust. Hello, Anthony. Happy Friday the 13th, he says. So Javier says Pfizer didn't develop vaccine already. See, I don't know about all that. Yeah, I could I could go on for hours about the lockdown stuff. I had a funny feeling when you said that you were very sad. I had a funny feeling that it was the lockdown thing. And I could go on for hours about that. And I actually wrote, what did I write? Oh, there's a composition, and I won't be releasing it for a couple weeks. I'm releasing it the day before Thanksgiving. I think that's. Let me look at my calendar. But in the comments, the blog that I'm writing for that piece, I said on there, I said, I've been trying not to talk about COVID-19 because this really is not that kind of, okay, the 25th, that's basically 2 weeks away. But at the bottom of this composition thing, because this is a composition that I wrote trying to keep my spirits up, right? So there were I think about 5 or 6 pieces I started during the lockdown. But the thing is I was using them to express myself. Like I have one that I started during Easter week that I call The Passion, right? But it's one of my more modern pieces with a lot of dissonance. And it tries to capture that torment of the Easter, of Christ dying on the cross and all of that. And at the end, it's supposed to be a very happy piece. And but it's such a dark piece that I'm writing, and I needed. And some of the other pieces are like that too, very, very dissonant, very dark. And so I wrote this other piece to be sort of a contrast to that. It's a swing piece for trumpet quartet. And at the bottom of this thing, I'm telling people how my whole purpose of finishing that piece instead of the other ones, because the parts are 5 pages long. It's a long, long piece. But it's also fast. So it's in terms of time, it's only 3.5 minutes. But my whole thing was I needed to focus on something more uplifting, because this if I start thinking more about this, the negative parts of this, it really it can bring me down. So I can appreciate how you feel, Gabriel. Um, Trumpet makes lockdown so much easier to endure. That's Javier saying that. Yeah, you know, let me tell you guys this. When I say that I'm frustrated about the lockdown stuff, I don't want to give you the wrong impression, right? Um, I believe that God set me up for this. So I had all the right stuff in the right places before this happened. So I don't think it's affecting me nearly as much as it affects other people in terms of like the business side of everything and all that stuff. I think if God hadn't done what some of the things that happened over the last 4 years, I think it would have hit me a lot harder. I really do. So when I say that I'm frustrated, it's the teacher in me that can't stop caring so much about the people who are going through all this stuff, right? I mean, I'm going through it too. It's just not nearly as bad for me. I have to admit that. But it doesn't bother me so much for my sake. It bothers me more for other people's sake. Um, Especially the guys that do this 100%. Now there aren't a lot of them in Houston, but there are some, and there's some people who I don't know. I can't even imagine what they're doing right now. So Gabriel says I will try to practice more and more. Yeah. Oh man. Raimo, hello. Nice to see you. Nice to see you back here again. Yeah. Javier says, how much time should a trumpet student be studying playing a specific style? A year minimum per style? No, I don't think. It's accumulative, right? I teach what I call accumulative practice. You can get there faster by just spending more time, right? Now for style, the style happens mostly with your listening, right? The majority of it is in what you spend your time listening to. You have to submerge yourself so deep into the style, but I think a year for someone who's really into it, then a year is a little bit. Now here's the thing about this is why I like this philosophy, right? Instead of working for perfection, we work for familiarity. And that's an integral part of the the accumulative uh, the accumulative philosophy of practicing, right? So you can accumulate familiarity for your whole life. There's if you look at what do you call that, a number line. Each time you play a song, each time you play a gig, like for me with salsa, right? For me with salsa, I never stop becoming more familiar. Even today, even though I'm not playing salsa gigs anymore, it's very rare for me to play salsa anymore. But my familiarity still grows in tiny increments because I'm still listening to salsa. So a question like that, a student to become familiar, right? Is that how you said it? How much time should trumpet? Okay, so yeah, I'm assuming what you mean is to become familiar with that style, and there's no top to that. right? So once you get started, you're in it for the rest of your life, whether you like it or not. Really, the accumulative thing, that's one of the truths of it, is that you're accumulating for the rest of your life, whether you like it or not, right? So I have friends that don't like Tejano music, right? We were talking about the different styles last week. Tejano is leans more towards rancheras than it does cumbias. Sometimes you'll have Tejano cumbias too, but it's more on the ranchera side. And I have friends that don't like that music because it's too popular and to this and to that. But I'll tell you what, you can't stop getting better at it because it's people who listen to that music or their friends listen to that music. It's around them all the time. You can't stop becoming more familiar with it. So even if you hate the music, you're still building that familiarity over time because that's part of the society you're living in, right? Anthony says, by the way, I'm going to tell you this. I'm only on one that I know of. I'm only on one Grammy CD, and that Grammy is on a Tejano album by this guy named Little Joe and La Familia. And his album, the album that I'm on that won a Grammy is called Chicanismo. Chicanismo. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Anyway, Anthony says they say whomever they are at the lockdown made some people depressed. That's correct. I am because my brother-in-law is home. This is the ongoing drama, the brother-in-law drama. Yeah. No, it's a real thing. And part of it, I think, is because, and it depends on what country you're in or what state you're in. Part of it is because some of them are going as far as to say you can't even go outside of your house, which is ludicrous because the disease doesn't spread outside with the sunlight. And here's the other problem is that you need vitamin D to fight the virus. So by being cooped up inside, you're going to be lower on vitamin D and less capable of fighting the virus when, if God forbid, you end up getting it, right? So it really is. And the reason why I brought that up is because that's also a thing, right? If you can't get outside, it makes people depressed. That's a thing. It's a real thing. That's why there's more cases of depression in places like Seattle, where it's rainy all the time and they hardly have any sunlight up there. I think that's a bit of an exaggeration, but yeah, the not being able to get outside to be in the weather causes people to become depressed. It's a truth. I'm going to try not to talk about that stuff. Hi, Eddie. Which valve oil do you use? I use, this is from Alex E. I use Binac, I think it's Binac Pro. Let me show you. Ooh, I started working out again and I'm sore. And I only took like 2 or 3 weeks off. And I'm all sore all over again. It looks like this. And I used to sell it. Actually, I still sell it officially. I just don't sell it on my website anymore because we're not set up right now for physical orders on the website. But the reason I like this, okay, when I first got it, it was because I had just bought this horn and the valves were sticking. And no matter what I did with them, they stuck anyway. So I heard about this valve oil. I bought some. I clean my valves up because you're not supposed to mix this with any other kind of valve oil. I clean my valves up and put this oil on, and for the first time since I bought the horn, which was, I think this was like maybe a month or two into it. So when I say this horn never had anything but this, I mean after that first month. Sometimes I exaggerate a little bit. I apologize for that. But yes, and I use the bottle up. Here's the thing. I oil my valves. I want to say once every 3 weeks or so. Sometimes I go like a month without oiling my valves. And it's because of this stuff, right? And so it took me a few years to get through that first bottle. And then I thought, well, this stuff is kind of expensive. So when you consider how long it lasts, it's really not that expensive. But it's also kind of hard to get. So I bought some valve oil. I guess that makes me a liar, right? Because I said it hasn't had anything but that. But I bought a bottle of valve oil, and something that I noticed, and this is now the real reason why I use this oil. Something I noticed when I went back to traditional oil is that my allergies came back. Now, I don't know how much the valve oil, like the traditional stuff, I don't know how much the fumes come up. I have no clue. I've never measured it. So what I'm telling you now is anecdotal. I don't have any proof, but I believe that the traditional oil was irritating my sinuses, and I was getting, between that and the different pollens or whatever that were in the air, I would, during certain times of the year, have very serious allergy attacks. When I switched to this, those allergy attacks went way, way, way down. And in fact, the woman that made this oil, the story she tells that she's got asthma. She's a flute player, and she's got asthma. And the reason she invented this oil in the first place was because this was triggered, the other oils that she used on her keys was triggering her asthma. She needed something that wouldn't do that. So that's the biggest reason why I use this oil. But there's other good reasons too. Okay, so I'll use this. This horn, I think, is 2.5 years old now. It doesn't seem that old, but that's 2.5 years. There's no marks on the valves, right? And what looks like a mark is actually, I haven't gotten all the dirt out yet. You know, when you buy a new horn, it's got dirt in it. Maybe it's not technically dirt, right? But there's stuff in the horn when you buy it. And it's because of the way they make the horn. If you've never seen one of those videos about how they make trumpets, you should really watch. That's amazing. To bend the bell, for example, they put this stuff in it, and then it solidifies, but not completely solidify. That way it doesn't like crimp the bell when they bend it, right? But that stuff, I think I'm not an expert, but I think it all leaves residue behind, and it takes a while to get the stuff out. But yes, my valves are usually very, very good shape compared to before. Anyway, I hope that answers the question. Gabriel says, Eddie, what about solfeggio? Do your students practice it? You know what? I've kind of gotten away from it, and I think I was thinking about that a couple days ago, right? Why did I stop teaching solfeggio? Because that's like one of the things that I do, especially for the beginners, right? Especially for the beginners, because a beginner that can solfeggio a major scale is going to do a lot better than a beginner who can't, right? I always used to do that, and I think what the difference is having to do all the lessons on Skype. For some reason, um, I just stopped doing it. So yes, we don't we don't normally I have the students do solfeggio. There's a few different times we do solfeggio. We do as beginners so that they can develop their ear a little bit before they play the horn. And I like to take, so for the beginners, I start them with solfeggio, then we do the mouthpiece. No, yeah, the mouthpiece, and then we do um the on the trumpet. So and then the other time we do solfeggio as part of the lesson is if there's a tricky interval. We'll solfeggio through the interval. Um or if it's tricky intonation too, because solfeggio will help you with the intonation. So yes, it's something I have done. Gabriel says, about familiarity, I love your example in one range of you delivering pizzas. I don't even remember that. Oh, yes, now I remember that. I used to deliver pizzas, and we had a set boundary. But, I became familiar with those areas over the boundary. On the job, right? It wasn't because of trying to go farther. I wasn't trying to push farther on those boundaries. Hey, let me see what's across that street. It's just a natural phenomenon. If you go up to the boundary on a regular basis, you become familiar with what's on the other side of that boundary. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for reminding me about that. I forgot that was even in there. Anthony says they have vitamin D supplements you could take. Yeah, you know what? I don't think it's the same. So, you know, I'm not. I take the vitamin D supplements, and not a lot of them. In fact, not even every day. But we have them here. My wife takes them more than I do. Um, but you know what? Ever since this lockdown started, I've been going outside to spend at least an hour in the sunlight every day, except Sunday. I've been going out and I give myself work to do. And I also move my exercise gym outside and I do my exercises outside now. Um, and but I'll tell you what, and I can't know for sure that it's the vitamin D, right? I can't know that. But I feel a lot better when I'm out there doing the exercise in the sunlight. The only time I don't do this is when it's raining, right? And even then, if it stops raining and later, I'll go back out there and do some stuff, right? So so when I say I don't think it's the same, I don't think it's the same potency is what I mean. I think the vitamin D capsules help, but I don't think you'll ever get the same kind of potency from a pill that you do from just being in the sunlight. Javier says, yeah, my brother had vitamin D deficient. He is white as Casper and does expose to sun. Doctor gave him supplements, and in a couple months he was perfect. Yep. Oh, I see. He does not get exposed to the sun. I see. Javier says, would you write down the name of the oil, please? I'll type it here. Oh, I see someone else did. Alex did. Yeah, that's Alex. It's Binac Pro. That's correct. Anthony says, I'm working on a piece with tricky fingers, so I'm working it slow, then going to speed it up. So, and then Anthony says, do you have any other ideas to get up to correct speed? First of all, remember that the faster you go, the more you rely on the subconscious, not the conscious. In order to play fast, you have to have more control from the subconscious part of your mind, not the conscious part of your mind. So whatever you do to put, now this is something I teach in my lessons, right? Now what I was about to say is whatever you do to put the information into your brain well, better, is going to make you play faster. Okay? And a lot of times what that means is doing it slow more than 10 times. I'm looking at 50 times. Playing it at least half tempo, 50 times before you start creeping the tempo up. That's the first thing. Another thing is to memorize it. Because if you're playing it by memory, there's less thinking having to happen. You know, when you play by memory, it doesn't have to go from here to your brain and then brain back to the horn. It doesn't have to do that. It's starting off in the brain, right? But here's the thing. This is what I teach my students, right? You have 3 parts of memory. This is something I got from a book. I didn't make this up. You have 3 parts of memory. You have input, and then you have retention, and then you have retrieval. It works just like a computer, right? Input, retention, retrieval. Now, they say in this book that I read that the retention part is automatic. You don't have to do anything to remember. There's nothing you have to do to remember, ever, right? So when there's problems with memory and speed stuff, going at faster tempos is a memory thing. Because you have to think of that stuff so fast that there's no time to reason your way through it, right? So when something breaks down, whether it's in the memorization or just the tempo, it's either because you didn't learn it well enough to begin with. For example, if you're sloppy when you're doing the input, then what comes out is going to be sloppy. And chances are, if it is sloppy, then it didn't leave a very good impression in your brain. So when it comes out, it's got this chance, especially at the faster tempo, of just falling apart. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is the part that I think most musicians don't get, right? Because if, let's say you already learned a piece. Hypothetically, you already learned a piece, but you took a month off and now you're coming back and you can't remember it. What does the teacher normally tell you at that point? The teacher at that point tells you, go drill it again. And that is wrong. It's absolutely wrong. Drilling is for the input. If you've already done the drilling, you don't have to do the drilling again. So that's the wrong answer to that problem. The information is already in your head. The drilling is to put it there. That's not going to help you. So the way we pull that out, and this is where the solfeggio comes in, right? The way we pull it out is by hearing the music better. I know that sounds bizarre. And that's only loosely related to playing faster. Now, there are some techniques that you can use to play lines faster, right? So, for example, let me pull an etude out real quick. I'll just grab one at random. Let's see, what do I have here? Second Herring Orchestra Trumpeter. Okay, let me find something that has 16th notes. Okay, here's one that has 16th notes. Let's say, so this is halfway down the page. Let's say you're trying to learn that real fast. Okay? Which that doesn't really sound like something you would do very fast, but just we'll go with that. Okay? The first thing you do is fermata. I call this, someone calls it the quick change, so I call it the quick change. I forget who I got that from. It's called quick change. So you go fermata, 30-second note fermata, 30-second note fermata, like this. And you would do that like 10 times, right? And that wasn't so good. By the way, let me tell you guys about this, and I did a video about this once. I had 2 cracked notes in there. That would not have, if I was really practicing this, that would not have counted as one of my 10, right? And so you get to choose. This is what the video was about. You get to choose how good you're going to be by the way you practice. You get to choose. If you say that was okay, that counts as number 1, then you have chosen to play sloppy. There's no way, if you accept that as one of your 10, there's no way you're going to ever go on and be less sloppy than what you are in that example, right? Oh, another cracked note. Woo! Let's see if I can not crack this very simple piece. Okay, so now we would do that 10 times. Then we flip it and do the 30-second note first and then the fermata. And you would do that 10 times. Now, it depends on what you're doing. Sometimes that's enough. But during those times when it's not enough, we do now 2 notes and a fermata, right? Two notes fermata, 2 notes fermata, do that 10 times. Then we move where the fermata is. So you go 30-second fermata, 30-second. So you're just going to move the fermata on a different one. And you just keep going like that until you've gone, so I guess the concept here is your fingers are moving fast while your brain is moving slow. It's an amazing technique for learning how to play fast because you're not playing fast at all, except that your fingers are, right? It's an amazing technique. So RDX, hello RDX. He says, hey, I've been working on range for about 4 months now and have seen no improvement at all. I don't use too much pressure. I use enough air. I warm up and down, but don't know what I'm doing wrong. Okay. So My approach to the range is a familiarity approach. Okay, it's part familiarity and it's part like building the muscles. You have to have both. But the familiarity part is the main focus, because the muscles, if you're doing the familiarity part, the muscles get built. There's also, so anyway, basically, now let me tell you this, I can't know what you're doing wrong because I don't know, I don't have a a better understanding of exactly your situation, right? So I can tell you this, and these guys have all heard this, heard me say this many times over. I don't practice range exercises. I don't teach range exercises, and in fact, I don't even allow my students. I guess that's a strong word. Of course, they're allowed, but I try to get them to understand that it's not a good idea to even try to play high. I believe in getting there through familiarity. So basically, the concept is, in order to have that familiarity, you do everything that you do up to your top range, but you only do that twice a week. And as you get even farther ahead, it's only once a week, because, so like for me, my top range on, I can play higher than that, but I only practice up to G above G above high C on Tuesday and E above high C on Friday. But yes, we don't, all the other days I'm playing like normal notes, right? So, so yes, it's, now all of this information is in my book called the One Range Book. But really, as far as what's exactly going on with you, I wouldn't be able to know that. But I am not a fan of practicing high. And the way we get to the higher notes is to have greater familiarity with those notes. So you're welcome, Anthony. Anthony says thank you. Gabriel says the best solution is always the dog's toy whistle in the third valve. I've seen that. And then he says, or you read one range and it's done, right? So several of the guys on this live chat have been doing the One Range book and getting good results with it. And the best thing about the One Range book is that you don't sacrifice anything to get that range. You don't sacrifice, in terms of musical stuff, right? You're not going to sacrifice your sound. You're not going to sacrifice flexibility, musicality. You're not going to sacrifice any of that. And that's the biggest problem with the traditional way of approaching high notes, is that, and I'm not saying that the guys that invented those methods, I'm not saying that they didn't have good sounds. I'm not saying that anything like that, right? What I'm saying is, when we're coming up, that stuff, what they do every day, doesn't work for us necessarily. So RDX says, thanks so much. You're welcome. Anthony says, Eddie, when you say play high, what notes are you considering to be high? Well, I consider anything high that's over what you can do over all the time, right? I have people, a lot of times someone will have a lesson, right? And I'll ask them beforehand, what is your range? And a lot of times they'll say, like I'll just pick one, right? They'll say, oh, I've got a range up to high C. and then I'll give them assignments, and they can't play the assignments. Their range isn't up to high C, because if what they meant when they said that's my range is that they can get the note, right? But playing that stuff is different from just getting the note. And so, yes, I'll give them one of my routines, or I give them one of my etudes, and they can't even get halfway through the piece, or halfway through the etude, or halfway through the routine, and they start swelling up, and the tone gets all messed up, and within minutes they can't play at all anymore. Sometimes the most extreme cases. So yeah, that's the best thing about this approach, is that you don't have any of that, right? So I got sidetracked. I don't know. I was looking up here and I'm like, so we're talking about what do I consider high? Sorry. So so high is whatever is over the range that you can do. If I gave you an etude that went up to high C 20 times, and you could play that, then your range is at least up to high C. What's high for you then is what's over and above that, right? So for me right now, I would consider stuff high that's around the super C area, mainly because I don't do a whole bunch of that, right? The last two super Cs I've played were, and in fact, they were not super Cs. The last one I played in here was an E above super C, if I remember right. You guys said that your dogs barked at the or whined or something. So yes, playing what is high is really relative. So Gabriel says, seriously, I had great results with that book. Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that. Whenever I hear that, it's just like, because that's what it's for. And I put months. Well, actually, really years, but I'm talking about the actual writing part. I invested a lot of months of effort into that book. So I'm glad to hear that people are actually benefiting from it. Javier says, have solidified my high notes just but doing the tonalization. Okay, so yes, the tonalization studies are a big contributor to this familiarity thing. So remember what I said about the three parts of memory, right? You've got input, you've got retention, and you've got retrieval. And then I said that the way we retrieve is with our ears. The guy that wrote that book was not a musician. It was a book about memory. And he was one of those guys that talked about, so the way you pull something out of your memory is with a trigger of some sort. That's how that works. That's why people put the string on their fingers and stuff like that. You set up a trigger. And for a while, I tried to figure out what do we have as musicians that can trigger the stuff that we need. And then it dawned on me, we already have that. And it's true. If you can remember how the music goes, and I mean really remember, because if I ask you to sing a song, you might not actually sing all the right notes. You might kind of fluff through some of the notes. Well, those are the places where you don't really remember what it sounds like, right? So now where the tonalization studies come in is the tonalization studies establish that ear to fingers connection. And when you're doing it over that full range, that ear to fingers connection is getting solidified over your full range. So yes, out of all the things that I teach as far as exercises goes that help you range, that part of it is the most important part of it. The tonalization studies are the most important part of the whole one range approach because of that. Now, the other parts of the physical trumpet pyramid have equal importance. That contradicts what I said, but like the intervals, like when you're doing the lip slurs, that's important because it connects the two registers. Um, so when in terms of its application to the music, nothing comes close to the tonalization studies. Babies are a good. This is Javier. Babies are a good trigger for playing good. I don't know what that means. Babies. Yeah. Um, Gabriel says, I notice I can hit an E or F over high C making tonalization, but playing music, I'm a couple notes down. Okay. Um, I think that's just a matter of time. I think that's just a matter of time. It takes a little time for it to make that connection, right? Oh, babes. Gabriel says everyone talking of high range, but never about pedals, right? Yep. You know, it's real cool once you learn to master pedals. It's real cool in improv, right? Because there's times when the ideas I have would normally have been cut off, but I can actually go down there and actually play those. It's not like beautiful or anything, but you can actually finish the idea. Javier says high range is overrated. Without context is just like hearing a kettle. That's right. Yeah. Well, all of that stuff. So everything about what makes music good is about contrast, right? We don't know how, when we're listening to a piece of music, the slow stuff isn't slow until you've heard something fast. It's sort of like the yin yang, right? The now, so like, what am I saying? Like loud and soft, right? You don't know what's loud or what's soft until you have both. If you only have one, it's not really loud, right? If you're only playing loud, it's not loud. If you're only playing soft, it's not really soft because it's the contrast that creates that. And same thing with the high and low stuff. It's not really high if you're really, there's no value in the high notes unless you have it in a context, just like what you're saying. So Gabriel says, so we don't practice down in the staff. So I'm not sure what you mean with that one. Javier says, you don't know what is loud until you play in that gig. You mentioned Eddie, the Romans. Oh, the Romanian, the Romanian gig. That was pretty loud. They had like 5 or 6 guitar players, and they were all cranked all the way up. So Gabriel says, I mean pedals. So we don't practice down in the pedals. I only do the pedals. Well, that's like what I'm saying, right? There's times when I'm playing the tonalization studies, and I forget what I'm doing because I don't look at the music when I do the tonalization studies, and I end up passing the low F sharp But no, I don't actually intentionally go down there except for when I'm actually practicing pedal tones. So I do the pedal tones in the long tones, and I do the pedal tones as a regular exercise, but I rarely do much practicing of that down there. Hello, Anthony. Glad to see you back. Javier says, if the system has days of low, mid, high effort, should the music practice be accommodated? Yes, there should. The And that's hard, right? Especially when you're younger, because I mean, not younger, but less, if your range is lower, then that means on some days you're trying to practice music that's like below C. Oh, excuse me. So, but what you do with that time, so the thing to keep in mind is that's also the shortest practice day. So what you might work on that day is something that you normally have to play up an octave, but working on the hearing of it. And then sing it, right? Working on more the ear training side of it, but that practice session is going to be a lot shorter anyway if you're following that system, right? So it's not like, and the day that you're going to practice the most is the day that you're practicing highest, right? So you make up for that time that you're limiting by getting a lot of practice in on that other day. Now, a lot of people can't work that out because of their work schedules or school schedules, but that's ideal. Practice a lot on Tuesday. A lot of people tell you don't do that, but they tell you don't do that because when people do that, they're like overly gung-ho and just like overdoing it on one day. That's not what we're talking about, right? So it's not the same thing. So when you hear someone say, don't do that, that doesn't apply to what we do. Gabriel asks a very good question. What about tempo in tonalization? There's no tempo. There's a reason why there's no time signature. There's a reason why there's no bar lines. And when you really look at it, those aren't eighth notes. The only reason they have an eighth note beam is to show you that those notes are related to each other. So there is no tempo. So if I want to slow down and speed up according to what I feel like I need. Just like that. You slow down when you feel like you would benefit from slowing down. You speed up when you feel like you would benefit from speeding up. I hope that makes sense. And that, by the way, the whole book is like that. All of the routine books are written that way. So when you're doing the lip slurs, you slow down where you think you're going to get the most benefit from slowing down. The whole thing is like that. Maybe less so on articulation, but still. And I try to write it in a way that there's absolutely no time signatures on the earlier books. Some of the time signatures slipped, but there's really no time signatures in any of my exercises for those exercises. Raimo says, I got one range book now, I am chewing it, very nice, and my flugelhorn, but I may be just a little bit too old to learn to play trumpet. Oh, I don't accept that. So, yeah, I don't accept that. Of course, I don't know how old you are, but I've taught trumpet players in their 90s. You know what? Instead of making this about age, why don't you tell me what issues you're having that make you think that, and we'll talk about that, right? Someone asked me, I was a student. I had a student recently, and I won't say who it was, but I had a student who said, because he's very ambitious, right? And he's getting a lot done, more than normal, right? More than a normal student. And I mentioned something about how quickly he's going through my materials. And he says, well, he doesn't have much time. And I thought, what are you talking about? And he thinks he's getting old enough to where he can't do this. And, the thing is, yes, sometimes when you get older, things happen, right? And some of those things can prevent you from playing the horn. Like, for example, maybe you have blood pressure medicine that makes your lips real weak, and it becomes too difficult to just physically get the lips to hold in the place. There's stuff that happens as you get older, but it's not. I don't want to ever. I will not accept that just being older automatically makes you unable to play. I will not accept that. First of all, I've played professionally with guys who, when I was in my 30s, kicked my butt in their 80s and 90s. Not just kicked my butt like with their intellect. I mean, they kicked my butt with their strength, right? These guys were strong lead players and stuff like that. Powerful players, and in their 70s, in their 80s, and then rarely, but still, some of them in their 90s. So, and Anthony, I'm assuming, is asking how old Raimo is. If you are 100 years old, probably yes. So, I do know that sometimes, for example, some people get so weak in their older age, they can't hold the horn up. But here's the thing. If it's an issue with strength not holding the instrument up, they have actually stands you can put this trumpet on, so you don't have to hold it up, right? So I don't think that's. But chances are, if you have trouble holding the horn up, then you might have trouble keeping the embouchure, because whatever it is that's causing the muscles to fail on holding the horn up might also cause the lips to fail too. So there are issues. I'm not going to say that there's nothing that goes wrong when you get older. There are issues, but those are health issues. And so it's not. It would be the same kind of issues that would prevent you from doing other stuff as well. So it's not necessarily a trumpet thing, I guess is what I'm saying. And it's not necessarily an age thing as well. I did something stupid last year. I won't give you any details because I'm ashamed of it. I did something stupid last year, and I thought it was funny back then. And I also thought it was clever. One of the reasons why I have this attitude towards people who think they know so much is because when I think I know so much, I'm always getting it wrong. So, there were times last year in October where I couldn't hold my horn up because of some stupid stuff I did. And so yes, I know firsthand what it's like to have medical issues that prevent you from playing. And you know what? What I'll do is I'll pray over all you guys and say you're not going to have those issues. Oh, I'm just going to say put that out there, okay? I do believe in the power of prayer, and I'm not actually being sarcastic. I'm actually being truthful and honest. Um, I pray that you guys don't have that and that you can have normal, healthy lives for the rest of your life. I pray that for all of you. Where am I now? If you're 100 years old, you probably yes. No, not much room in years to improve. So you know what? Sometimes it's not about improvement, right? And I think that means joking. JKD. Um. Anyway, Gabriel says, "Thanks, Eddie. About this about tempo was very useful. Very good. Thanks. Is there any great difference among flugelhorn and trumpet technique?" Okay, so I'll tell you guys what one of my teachers, actually he wasn't really a teacher, he was one of the other students, but he was older. He told me, he was a sax player. He says the difference between playing tenor and alto. Now, I've talked to other people who said that this is not true. But I like his concept. He says when he's playing alto, he doesn't have to put so much into it. But when he's playing tenor, the tenor is more, you know, more muffled or whatever. I don't remember the word he used. So he had to articulate harder and more clearly on the tenor. And I think on the flugelhorn we have similar stuff like that. I think if when we're playing the flugelhorn, we have to play it like it's a little bit sluggish. But in terms of technique and stuff like that, it really is just the same, in my opinion. Javier says, if I ever get a health problem that prevents me from playing trumpet, I'll start piano. Yeah, I thought about that. That's a good backup. A lot of people do that. I have my old boss from when I used to teach at the performing arts school. He started off as a trumpet piano player, and he blew his lip out, and then he became um, a piano player. Great piano player. Okay, Raimo says, okay, thank you. You convinced me. Very good. I will continue to do exercises. And next year I will be 80. Okay. Wow. Yeah. And do you know what? I think that's great. Hello, Bota. Nice to see you. Nice to see you again. Gabriel says, if I had health problem on playing trumpet, I'll play cornet or I'll blow in a Coke bottle. Mr. Walker is here. Hello, Mr. Walker. I have seen and heard older VFW members that played taps on trumpets or real bugles in their 90s. That's right. I've seen that too. I've seen that too. Raimo says, I have a plan to play old dance music. Well, that's great. I love that music, right? I just love that music. Javier says, Raimo, the coolest people are the older people. Yep, that's true. That keep the struggle going. Yeah. Like Clint Eastwood. Yeah. Oh, I see we're over time. Gabriel says, is piccolo hard to play? You know how I look at piccolo? Piccolo, this is my attitude towards piccolo, right? It sounds kind of sacrilegious because there's a lot of people that basically worship that instrument. Um, the piccolo is a stupid instrument. That's how I see it, because it's just like the regular trumpet, but it's got the bottom half cut off. that's why I say it's a stupid instrument. I love playing it, and I love the way it sounds, but it's so frustrating, right? Because it doesn't give you it doesn't give you any extra range. So it's like all the same stuff you have on this other instrument, but with the bottom part cut off. It's like, oh man. I've added to my improv rotation. Um, I've added improvising on my piccolo for 5 choruses. So I do when I'm on part of my practice routine, I do 50 choruses, 50 improv choruses on one tune. And 5 of those 50 is on my piccolo trumpet. And I'll go, right? Because you can't play those notes that I'm hearing. And oh man, I get so frustrated. Written stuff, not so bad, right? Written stuff, you're not going to accidentally go down that far because you're reading the notes. But when I'm improvising, I get frustrated. And it really doesn't, for improv, it really doesn't have a good sound. I thought the reason I started doing the 5 choruses, I thought if I do this for a while, maybe my improv sound on the piccolo would get better, but it hasn't yet. So Gabriel says, "Oh, okay, I quite agree." Javier says it's an overpriced little trumpet. Yeah, they are. Well, you know what? I got mine at a great price. Right before all the prices skyrocketed, I got mine in 1990, and it's a beautiful horn. It's great. I love it. Bota says, you said in the past videos that you never practice on shallow mouthpiece. That's correct. Don't you have problems acclimating from the normal mouthpiece to the cheater? No. Now this is something that Gabriel and I were talking about. He asked me about my mouthpiece earlier in an email, and I do have some trouble going back and forth on a gig with that mouthpiece. That's why I've been looking for a new mouthpiece, is because that one is smaller. I think he said he found a website that, if I'm not mistaken, 6.5. That doesn't sound right. 0.65, right? 0.65 inches or something like that. But yes, that mouthpiece is a little too small to be switching back and forth. But in the past, before I got that mouthpiece, in the past, as long as the rim is exactly the same from one mouthpiece to the other, I don't have any trouble with switching. And in fact, sometimes I'll be on the gig and forget which mouthpiece I'm on and not even know the difference. Really. Javier says piccolo is like an overpriced kid's trumpet or a dwarf. Yeah. All right, so I got to close down this one. Nice to hang out with you guys again. I guess God bless you guys. Yeah. Thank you guys. Nice. If it wasn't for you guys, well, this wouldn't be happening, right? So it's nice to be able to connect with you guys every week. I love answering your questions. I actually I actually look forward. I said this last week. I actually look forward to um, sharing what I know with you. Thank you, Mr. Walker and Bota and Gabriel. Nice to see all you guys. And we'll see you guys again next week. All right. Okay. See you later.